Welcome back to the Pulse. We're trying to figure out what the voting results are. We don't know. But as soon as we know, we'll let you know. And as we prepare for it, I'm going to talk to my friend Lauren Leese over here on the left. And I want to know, who do you think the greatest of all time was?
Well, right before we went, Kevin told me that MVP was with Incredible Miracle. So that means that his whole thing is I am MVP. That's pretty legit. That is so legit. Even if he's not the best player, he has the best name by far. So it's hard. Do you want to vote for the best player? And maybe he is the best player. So do you want to vote for him or his name?
Well,
I vote his name.
we have the results. Here they are, guys. And it looks like the whole
Ben's wrong.
world,
What a surprise.
The whole world seems to agree with us. 60% voted MVP. That really does surprise me.
Who would you put in the other category though, like 4.5%?
Live Dongregoo, Marine King.
Dongregoo, Parting,
Yeah.
Marine King.
Marine King. Yeah, I mean, these are super dominant
Stefano
guys.
then as well.
Stefano is on
belongs
the
in that.
radar. He does.
And MMA, I'd say.
I would say if you want to talk about the two
And
greatest of
MMA.
all time, Stefano's in that conversation.
I mean, MMA dominated for quite a while.
Yeah, even he's fallen off a little
Yeah.
bit, but he was
And
a miracle
Alfie.
About
kid.
half a wings. Literally.
Alfie and Bishu.
Alfie.
Hey, Deezer's
Carrying
up there too, man.
the rear of the
Bishu
conversation.
#1 PVZ. Bishu's awesome. All right, that was fun. Let's get on into our hot topic, guys. We have a long, well, hopefully not too long, but a heated discussion on the way. It seems to me like team houses are all the rave these days. Axiom and Clarity Gaming have recently announced new openings, while Complexity has closed the doors to their Texas mansion and Fanatics Korea house has been relocated. All of this, of course, comes in the wake of the dissolution of Quantic and the closure of their house here in Southern California. EG's Lair is still going strong. The Root Boys are holed up in Peru, and the Ministry of Wind continues to be both a hub for community growth and community drama. Suffice it to say, team houses are a very hot topic. We've got a lot to say about it, but before we get into the debate, we sat down with an owner of one of the most newly opened team houses, Clarity Gaming. Well, Dan did the interview. Let's play it right now.
Team house. Where are you guys located and how are you enjoying it?
The Clarity Gaming training facility is located in Hampton Bays, New York, and we currently have 3 players there. Sungyang, which is Yang, Manhyuk, which is Jukto, and Alex, which is Shu. And we've really been able to get a lot of good work done in the house so far, improving the training environment for our players. And also, we've been able to establish a lot stronger bonds between our players, which I think is one of the most important aspects to a team's success.
Team houses, everyone knows, are very expensive, and Clarity Gaming has little exposure compared to the big fishes in the sea like Evil Geniuses. How are you guys even funding this team house, and is it sustainable for your team?
I wouldn't say it's fair to compare us, because again, they've been around for the better part of a decade, okay? We're still in our first year, so we have a lot of catching up to do. But with regards to the team house, it's definitely a financially sustainable option for us, and that's for a number of reasons. Number one is because we're able to keep costs as low as possible because we're not bringing on unnecessary staff and management. And number two is we're not renting this house. We're not paying a monthly rent to any property management fee or anything similar. We own the house outright, okay? So the house is ours indefinitely. It's not going anywhere, and as long as there's players in the house, it's going to remain a training facility.
Now, you mentioned that you guys have very direct priorities and goals for this team house. What are they? People are arguing the difference between marketing and sponsorship, pushing your players, versus developing your talent and really trying to get results. How are you guys balancing them? Or are you favoring one over the other?
You know, success can be measured in many different ways, and it's really all in the eye of the beholder. We really don't think that focusing on one at the exclusion of the others is smart. That's why we try and have a strong blend of marketing and player results. It has to be about both. It has to be about ensuring they have a proper practice environment, and it also has to ensure that they're able to get themselves out exposure-wise and marketing-wise.
Now, you do have a few Koreans that you got from Korea, and they're used to the Korean training facilities. In your opinion, how are team houses going to work outside of Korea? Because we've seen a couple different models, and some teams have closed down their doors and it's not very successful. What are you guys doing that are similar and different to the Korean training model?
If a team house doesn't have that kind of Korean KESPA work mentality, I don't see a team house as being a successful thing for the players, okay? You need to have the work ethic behind it, which the Korean team houses have proven that they have, and I think which the foreign world really has a lot of catching up to do on.
Thank you, Brandon, so much for your time. Definitely check out all of their social media at Clarity Gaming, claritygaming.com, and at clarity_gaming. Back to you guys at the desk.
All right, there's a lot to talk about here. We have had successful team house stories, certainly. The Evil Geniuses is the example that everyone points to because even in the words of Alex Garfield, we have gotten well beyond our expected return on the house. It's been absolutely worth it. There are also plenty of examples of team houses not working so well. The example I'm going to cite immediately is the Quantic house. We did just a little bit of homework on that one, and we know that they were spending in excess of $10,000 per month just to keep the doors open, $4,000 a month in rent alone. That does not include the expenses of power, internet, food, and more. It's a very simple question, guys. Does the team house model work? Particularly, does it work outside of Korea? Let's start with you, Kev.
Well, Ben, I prepared a really long monologue, but I know that we all have a lot to say about this, but in my opinion, no, a team house does not work in a foreign environment. Some of the reasons why I do think it works in Korea is because in Korea almost I feel everything is centered in Seoul, so having your base in Seoul, having your home base in Seoul helps out a lot. Also, you play in leagues like GSTL, like Pro League, so you're actually sort of doing a team thing where you say, okay, I go up first, you go after that, so you work as a team towards a certain goal. In a foreign scene, we don't have like a central hub like Seoul where all the action happens. So if you open up a house in California, but the event is in the East Coast, you're still going to have to fly there. It's still a lot of money. You're not really saving anything with it. Above all that, we do not have team leagues like they have in Korea. So no, I do not really think that's worth it. Above that, those team houses in the foreign world, they're very expensive. And everyone always say like, oh, it's so motivating to be surrounded by Starcraft II players all day and we're improving so much. In my opinion, having a team house in a foreign country, having it anywhere else than in Korea, is not worth it just because, in my opinion, the improvement in the skill is minimal as well. I do not feel that you can have a team house anywhere in the world. If it's not in Korea, you're still practicing sort of with the same guys that you could practice with from your own home. And yes, maybe you can communicate a little bit more with them, but what is there really that 5 foreign guys living full-time in a house with all the costs that brings along can do in a team house that they can do on their own? And look at all the success stories that we have in the foreign scene. Our biggest stars, they did not become our biggest stars because they went to team houses. No, they became biggest stars from their bedroom, and that's how it went. I would even go as far to say that if we would have had put Stefano in a team house in the early phase, I do not think Stefano would have been as good as he eventually become or become as successful. I think mindset in StarCraft II, it's a very different game than Brood War. Like in a Korean Brood War house, the reason that worked as well is I feel that, I mean, the mechanical skill cap in or ceiling in Brood War was just insane. So basically you would never be able, like you could always learn. There's so much to learn. In StarCraft II, I feel that everyone can push himself to that certain level. And I feel that the reason why Stefano has won so much, yes, he's fantastically talented and he's just amazingly good, but his mindset is amazing as well. We saw Stefano here before WCS. Did you see him play a single game 8 days in advance of the European Championships?
No.
He was sitting here and
he played 3 games.
He played 3.
That's right.
Once against all of us.
And he lost every single time.
Every single one.
We're undefeated against
all right,
Stefano.
so Stefano was here chilling for 8 days, and whenever I offered my PC to Stefano, he said, Kevin, why don't you play a game? Show me how good you are.
Stefano likes to sit behind you and make fun of you for being terrible.
Stefano went to WCS.
this game.
And Stefano went to WCS. He came out victorious. Stefano, his mindset is what puts him apart of the others. Red has stated this in the interview as well. And I believe if you put Stefano in a house with 5 other guys and tell him what to do, he will not be as happy. His mindset wouldn't be in the same place. He would not be as successful as he is right now. I would even say in Korea we had examples. Like for instance, when Fnatic opened the team house, we all said, booyah, awesome. Alive, when he went into the team house, came hot off winning IPL. What happened after Alive in the team house? Would you say that he improved? What about Rain? Would you say that Rain improved? And even like the foreigners that went to Korea, like guys like, I mean, Nighton is an awesome player and he was always good. He was good in Europe. When he went to Korea, he was good. When he got back from Korea, would you say like, wow, this is next level Nighton? Obviously, Nighton is still a really good player. He's still among the best Protosses in Europe. I do not feel that he made that jump. All in all, I feel that people overestimate the skill jump that people make being in the team house. Yes, you're going to get better. Yes, I do believe in, let's say, IPL 6 is coming up. Hey, let's have a boot camp for 2 and 3 weeks. We're going to get together. We're going to work our asses off for 2-3 weeks. I believe in that. I believe that's very useful. I believe that can work. I do not believe that even after that tournament you have to go back. I believe after that tournament everyone should go home. Because after all, StarCraft is a one-on-one game, man. If we're talking about Dota, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, I say yes. Living together with those guys all the time helps you a lot because you're improving your teamwork. At the end of the day, StarCraft is a one-on-one game, and I know there is so much more to say, and I know there's so much, like EG has done it right. I have a lot to say about that later on as well, but
let's slow you down for now.
Yeah.
I think we can sum.
You said a lot of crazy things.
I think we can sum all of that up with the word no.
I think we think the very same things, but we come to very different conclusions. When you mention Stefano and you basically give his story and say, you know, if he was in a team house, he wouldn't be as well. We know that Stefano is a huge outlier from anything we ever know about not only video gaming, but competition. Right? No one is going to go into a chess match and say, hey, let's just party and not practice at all and be good. No one says that. No one in their right mind. Olympic trainers don't say, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea, rather than going into a team house. He's a huge outlier, and then you use him to conclude. I shouldn't say that. You use him as one of your premises to conclude that.
Well,
then
to be fair, he said all of our stars. He said Stefano, Nurcio,
so you're going to include like Naniwa in there. You're going to include Huck in there.
Okay, let's talk Naniwa, for instance. Naniwa won MLG Dallas. Naniwa was the runner-up of the European Blizzard Invitational in 2010. So that basically means on that moment he was on top of the foreign scene. Naniwa went to Korea. Yes, he obviously reached a higher level there. But in Europe, were they not reaching a higher level when Naniwa came back from Korea back to Europe?
What was his level relative to the rest of Europe?
Yeah,
when he
like,
got back?
would you say that Naniwa became better compared to the rest of the European scene when he went to Korea and back? I would say that he lost even more games than by the time when he was still in Korea, when he was still in Europe.
I think he was a much better player when he came back from Korea.
No, he's a much better player.
Much better player.
But is he much more successful?
He's fundamentally a lot better. And you know very well that there is a very high variance in StarCraft II. I'm going to take someone else that's a big outlier that succeeds off of this model, which is Flash in Brood War. This guy was not only a genius. It doesn't...
For me, that matters a lot. I think Brood War is a completely different story than StarCraft II.
Well, let's hear what Andre has to say here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really right now just trying to discount a lot of his premises to form the conclusion that team houses don't work. I feel like you're naming a lot of people that haven't done as well, but I think there are people that have done well, like Naniwa, like Huck, even like, I guess I wouldn't call it too much, but Mana. A lot of different players, I think, have succeeded from team houses. And on top of that, they're not even speaking the language. What if they did speak the language?
Let me stop you guys for a second.
Just one last thing.
All right,
I did not necessarily want to say team houses. I said team houses in Korea. I approve of that. And I see that because I also think they get better practice there. My point was team houses in the foreign scene. I wouldn't necessarily say do not work, even though I do still think that even if they might work, I feel it's minimal. Most importantly, I feel it's not worth the investment. That's what I'm trying to say.
Hold your thought, Dan. What do you think?
Training houses do work. You know, we talk about. First of all, there's two sides of the team house, right? There's the marketing, there's the marketing, the sponsorship, the promotion, the layer, right? The lab, whatever you want to call it. You know, the laboratory, whatever. I don't know what next title they're calling it. Those things can work in terms of pushing out the players' personalities, but there's also the development side. We can all mutually agree that a house is good for the promotion, right? Like we can, if you have everyone together, it's easier to put the video together. So we're talking about development, but I think a lot of people have improved from team houses in general. I think Andre was telling me, when you put like-minded people together, especially when they're innovative and creative, to come up with builds, you refine them. People become much better. But unfortunately, because in the foreign scene, people get Twitter followers by opening their mouths instead of whipping out their keyboards and playing. People that's exactly how we've built our scene. It's built upon the drama. It's built upon the hype. It's built about talking about banelings and making comparisons to rape on YouTube. That is how people get personality, and that's how they get invited to team houses. This is the actual reality of Western foreign StarCraft II. It's not because of how the teams. I think you're right, Kev. You know, being in Korea does help, but there's also a cultural thing. Korean players share builds. They talk with each other. They're helping each other. When people talk about interviews, at the very end, who do they thank? Players on other teams. People are knocking heads over silly things just because they want to get 10,000 more followers that week, so that way they can push out their sponsors. That's why I think a lot of the Western foreign houses don't work, because their priorities are mixed up.
100% agree. But you know what? Like, see, both of you guys are right in a certain sense. There's a problem. There's a plague right now going on in the foreign scene with their team houses. I feel like there's a lack of management with the players. I feel like there's a lack of cohesion with the players. There's a big turnover with the players.
I think we have to ask another question because there's a lot of polarization. When we sit back and we look at the whole notion of the team house, when the player talks about the team house, he's thinking, in general, I think, about a training facility. I'm going to go here, I'm going to develop, I'm going to become better. But when you look at the reality of what the team house is, I talked to a lot of managers and owners in organizations. I talked to Jason Lake at Complexity, and across the board, these guys say that the team house is a marketing tool. Jason Lake says, in the real world, the star power of pro gamers is what attracts the marketing dollars that enable us all to pursue esports dreams. Personally, I don't believe marketing should be so overwhelming that it takes away from players' skill, but at the end of the day, we're all in the marketing business. This is reaffirmed time and time again by other team owners. Alex Garfield says, because teams are not funded by the consumer, but rather by sponsorship, the industry forces us to dedicate ourselves to marketing. If you're not creating content, you're shooting yourself in the foot. It's about the eyeballs you reach, the eyeballs you can document that you reach. Elroy Pinto of Fnatic says much the same thing. And these guys go on to say that from a development standpoint, team houses probably aren't that good in single-player games. They make a lot more sense in League of Legends, Dota, Counter-Strike. Let me ask a different question before we jump on to the point that I know Clutch wants to make. I want to ask, marketing versus development, what has to take precedent for a team house to be considered a success?
I think it has to be just player development. I think that's the #1 thing you need, because you will not have any content if you don't have that player development, right? If a player is still bad, how can you market that player and be like, hey, you should follow this guy because he's not gotten better, but he's coming out with this content that might work for you?
Boy, we can make some real jokes about this.
Come on.
I feel it's very, very hard to do both extremely properly. And even though EG is probably the most successful team house out there, would you really say that the guys living in the EG house have really benefited from it ever since they moved in? Was Idra not successful before he went into the house? And he still is. Like, he won IEM while he was in the house. The Muslim was already top 3 Europe at IEM Kiev in 2011 or 10. 2011, the European Championships. He was already top 3 in Europe, and after that he went into the house. Hawk, EG picked up Hawk while he was already on the super hot spree where he won DreamHack and Home Story Cup. I do not think that their house made their players better. Marketing-wise, EG, big thumbs up. Everything they did was fantastic. But do the players really gain that much? As I said, even if there is improvement, I feel it's minimum, and I don't feel that's something they can't achieve on their own.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let Josh speak to his point because this is the time for it. I know he's got a long little rant that he wants to go on, and then we're going to jump right back in with you, Dan.
Okay, thank you. The overall question is yes, they do work. They are successful. I measure success as that these players can do it full time. They can make a living from this. These training houses, these team houses need to be a training and marketing center, not a reward for results alone. They need to be able to learn skills outside of results to increase their market value. Skills like media training, how to give interviews, how to mention sponsors, how to look good on camera, how to have a personality, be it charming or controversial, that the audience will attach themselves to and have an emotional investment in outside of tournament results. Also, access to production technology. Look at these stream numbers from EG for most of the players. Idra, Huck, In Control, Stefano, DeMuslim, Thorzane, all in the multi-millions. These are people, eyeballs, views, seeing these players stream, seeing these sponsor overlays, and this is what they can present for marketing. Looking at the top 100 game streams for the month of January, this is dated on the 25th from GameStreams.com. Idra, Thorzane, Stefano make that list out of all video game streams. That's huge market potential. You can go to sponsors, you can go to people, and you can say, this is what we produce. These are people watching us despite tournament results. And also they have production facilities that can create hype videos, create shows that generate these type of memes, these type of gifts that become part of the StarCraft II community. Yes, team houses do work because the marketing value increases when these team members, when these individuals are trained not just as players, but as entertainers.
All right, we've got some polarizing opinions. I know you want to jump in. Dan has a point. We're going to go Dan first. Kev, if you want to make a rebuttal to anything Josh just said, we'll visit it. But after that, I've got another question that I want to throw to you guys.
Let me close.
Well, we're not. We're nowhere near closing.
Well, no. Let me say the last word. I have one little point I'll make.
1 point.
Okay. No, at the end. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, then Dan is all yours.
I do want to. First of all, great points. But I do want to speak to the idea that even though you should be making entertainers, in the end, this is a training facility, and that's what it really should be. And I know, Kev, you bring up the idea that, and I completely agree too in that sense, that for Dota, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, all these like infamous team, Na'Vi, like even the new EG team that signed on, the League of Legends team that used to be CLG EU, Moscow 5, who's now Gambit Gaming, they all are a team game. But even in single-person sports like MMA, like Extreme Couture or America's Top Team, Jackson's MMA, they need to be in a place where they can find people to train. Those environments really do work, and the training facility is exactly what it is. It's supposed to be an area where you have an advantage. It's an edge. Think of standardized testing across all kinds of countries. You go to those extra classes, you go to those extra tutors to get an advantage. It's not a guarantee that you'll do better, but it's your way to really put yourself in an environment where you have a greater chance to succeed. Even though Andre's completely right, the variance does not necessarily reflect your actual skill, because you might lose a lot despite being better.
Okay. Before I answer to you, I want to first answer. I completely agree with what you say. And yes, training camps are something, but do MMA fighters live full time for a year straight in the same place with them? No, they go on training camps, and that was my point as well. I think a boot camp of 2-3 weeks before a tournament is very useful. But does that mean you need to rent an expensive house in a foreign country, have guys live there, 5-6 guys, full time, pay all their food, and all the time for 356 days a year? Why can it not just be an office of a certain company, and then have a couple of guys come in 2-3 weeks in advance?
I like this point a lot, and I'm going to use this to jump into my next question. We've talked about team houses, and we've said yes, some of these work, some of these maybe don't work. Is there viability to all of it? Could be. But the underlying question now becomes, in my opinion, is it worth it? Is it worth it to invest all this money for all this time into housing players and feeding players and keeping them in the same place? And ultimately, if you're going to do that, is that proper use of your money? So, guys, is it worth it? Kevin, I think you're going to say no.
In a foreign country, no, it's not worth it.
I'm going to say yes, it's worth it.
How?
The proper plan, the proper structure, the proper management, as we've seen EG do.
Then why do so many people get it wrong if it's so worth it?
Because they rely too much on results. They look at Fnatic. Look at the Korean team with Fnatic.
Let's look at Fnatic. Thank you. Player development, I feel, is a bit overrated. Elroy Pinto of Fnatic. We've had an opportunity to create 3 team houses across 2 games. Each time was a different learning experience. As a concept, a team house is definitely workable. Locations are not important. The players should be able to speak the local language, and more importantly, the players staying inside should have met in person before and interacted before they move in. I think it's a bit hard to say at the moment exactly what the team house is for. Business sense tells you it's definitely for marketing. That is the only way to make it viable in the long term. Player development, I feel, is a bit overrated unless you have complete access to a real training regime. I don't think a team house works in single-player games like Starcraft or Warcraft. I also feel that team houses so far have only been tried out in single-player games. I think a team house would perhaps be better suited to team-oriented games like League of Legends, Dota, and Counter-Strike. Elroy Pinto, Fnatic Gaming.
Yeah, you know what? He mentioned something so important, which is speak the common language. You need order in a team. You need sameness in a team. You need to be able to break the ice and be cohesive. Because if you don't have that, what's going to end up happening is that you have all these single players. And one of my big points is I think streaming, even though it's so important for marketing, is one of the killers to progress.
I so agree.
And it's because you're so invested in saying, hey guys, here's a good show. I want to play for you, instead of saying, I just had a really crappy loss. Let me go talk to RotterdaM. What happened?
But
and just go away from the stream and be like, okay, this is what I have to do. You know, some players might like that, but for the majority of the time, it's boring. It's boring because then you have to go back to the drawing board. You have to sometimes just say Immortal all in me. Let me practice my micro. That's boring stuff to look at. Sometimes it's your build is wrong. Let me do this 20 times. I used to do builds 20 times in single player before I touched multiplayer. That is no joke. That is stuff people need to do. and it's not happening because of streaming.
Kev?
I just have 2 more things to say about this topic. First, I want to jump in on you. I 100% agree with what Andre just said. How bizarre is it that we see people stream their practice 2 days in advance? They play GSL Code S. Like, that just blows my mind. In Warcraft 3 days, and now we're talking about the pro scene, which was less evolved 6-7 years ago. We were super like, make sure that you don't share these replays with anyone. Now people are streaming their practice. So either you're not streaming what you're gonna play, which means you're wasting your time, or you are streaming what you play and you just give your information away. So either way, that's not effective. Last but not least, everything what Josh said about EG House is sort of correct. Yes, EG has done a lot of things right, but I don't know, Ben, we watched Indiana against Miami last season, and there was one fan cheer, there was a cheerful from Indiana fans which says the Pacers, they're built and not bought. And I don't want to, like, I would never say something bad about EG because I really love them and I respect so much what they do. But all their stars, all those guys with their good numbers, they bought them when they were already popular. Idra, Jaedong, The Muslim, and Hawk, they can create a team tomorrow, call it the Flying Pink Unicorns, and get the same stream numbers on Twitch as they get on the EG tag. And it's very cool that Torsen and Stefano are in the top 100 streamers of last month, but they haven't even entered the house. Like, the house, that doesn't justify the investment. Just because EG had the budget to get those guys and then is able to do amazing stuff with it, does not mean it's a good idea for any other team out there to put that same amount of money in a house but do not have that star power, and that's all I try to say.
Isn't that success when you have a built-in system that works, so therefore you can afford the other players that bring more viewpoints to your team?
But like, what about the guys that they did not buy as stars? You like Machine,
like LZ Gamer, Machine,
Games, yeah, XLab and Striveco. They never gained that much from living in that house.
Dan, you've been kind of trying to chime in here. What is it that you're wanting to
I do want to. I think that's an
discussion?
excellent point, Ben, that EG did have a big budget, but isn't that how teams really should be approaching this thing? They're trying to go into like exactly. We brought the Quantic House. They should know with that kind of capital investment that they need to get a certain return, and they have to invest big to make it back big. That's where EG got it right. Why can't people copy that instead of trying to do it their own way? Like, a lot of teams are trying to go to Korea and try to make all this big investment. But if they're doing it right, why can't we get more things in that regard? Like, teams have to be more careful about that. But you can't say that it's not worth it in that regard.
But almost no one has the budget that EG has to work with.
But why does EG have that budget? Because they have...
Because Alex Garfield is obviously a fantastic businessman who was able to put himself in that position to get that star power, then open the house and make the house successful. It is very, I think, ignorant or even...
Team houses can work then, in that regard.
No, in media-wise it worked, but then we're also talking about training-wise. Does it really work? Yeah. And was it worth the investment? For EG, yes, because they have that star power. But it's also because their players are popular. And only a certain amount of players can be popular. Otherwise, the word popular wouldn't exist. If everyone can bring in those numbers, everyone is popular.
And you have to be careful because EG is a huge outlier. You have to ask the question, can there only be one EG in the scene? Yeah. Is there enough? Is that oversaturation if we have two EGs?
Oh, that's really...
And you know, that's very subjective. But what it comes down to, the lesser teams right now have to view team houses not as a right for the players. It should be a privilege for the players. And I feel like the players should, to an extent, subsidize for the house and try to relieve some of the costs that the team incurs, because I really feel like paying for salary and food and electricity and the team house is just too much. And then they're looking, sponsors, where are you? Sponsors, where are you? Please hop onto this. That is not going to work. It's just so much of a risk. So, you know, lay the burden out all over the place, try to find it slowly, try to improve, and really put it on everybody's back.
It takes a team to build a team house.
Exactly.
The last thing I'll say, Ben, before I give it back to you, is that even people on Incredible Miracle, Nesty, MVP, who are winning championships, were giving money to their team so that they can stay alive and keep the team house alive.
As far as I know, Nesty doesn't live in the house, right?
Well, I mean, at the time, they were all contributing towards that. They said that in the documentary in the behind-the-scenes thing. So I think, Andre, I like to validate Andre.
That's a phenomenal point. And one that I don't think anybody really touches on. It's just I'm going to try to maybe say it in different words. If a player is getting $1,000 a month, you're saying that he shouldn't get $1,000 a month and be invited to live in the team house.
Correct.
You can take this $1,000 a month salary, or you can come live here, take $500 a month, and train with your teammates.
Yes.
And not only does that create that team environment that we're talking about, but it also greatly reduces the burden on the team and on the management and on the sponsors.
And just makes it much more sustainable in every single way.
And it gives the players a reason to do well.
An interesting point, and it's one that I really wonder why we haven't seen more.